Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Leegend TV. So today I decided to make the drive all the way to Quartier Saint-Henri to see my good friend Sebastian, who I've known for a number of years through soccer, like most of my guests so far. But of course, we all have our individual passions. Today we'll be interviewing the founder of Three Dreams, aka Rev. So, Sebastian, I guess a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Sebastian. I am co-founder of Dreams with my friend Pierre. A little bit about me: I originally from Argentina, grew up in the United States. I moved there when I was young. Grew up in the U.S. for about 19 years, and then I moved to Montreal, where I've been living here for the last 10 years or so.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Happy to hear, and you've been a good guy. Most importantly, why I like this guy is because of his character, his overall character. Infectious smile.
Stop that.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. So I learned, a number of years. I'm not sure when you started, but of course, Three Dreams is all about permaculture.
Yeah.
So for those who are new to the term permaculture, what is permaculture?
So permaculture, it's a design science that's rooted in the observation of nature.
Yeah.
So permaculture is kind of a modern term that really in all essence just is talking about utilizing the way that ecosystems work together to kind of benefit humans. So it takes a lot of different shapes in terms of ecological gardening or ecological agriculture, but ultimately it's a way of treating the earth and treating people in such a way that it really regenerates and builds on itself. So it's like kind of everlasting. It seems like a bit of a dogma in some senses, but at the same time, so there are three main principles to it. So it's earth care, people care, and fair share.
Yes.
So you always keep these things in mind whenever you're designing any kind of system, whether it's a garden, whether it's water management systems. You want to take care of the land, so of course you're not using any pesticides or anything that might harm any aspect of the land. You want to take care of the people, so you want to make sure that everyone kind of has enough to eat and people can really express themselves in the way that they want.
Yes.
And in fair share is that you're getting a yield, so that you are providing food, that the system's providing food for people, food for the animals, food for the soil, and that everyone gets their fair share. So that's really what it is in a nutshell.
Awesome, awesome. That's great, that's great. And in regards to the goal of Three Dreams, how did that start with your friend Pierre?
Yeah. So me and Pierre, we met at we did a permaculture design certificate with this organization called P3. So People for the Profit of the Planet. That's they're another similar organization, an organization that we look up to, a business that we look up to, because they really taught me and Pierre a lot of the things that we know and sparked that interest in us. So it was in 2015. I had started getting interested in urban agriculture and gardening because of really this land. I moved here in 2013 and started just trying stuff out. And I heard about this permaculture thing that is really just a way of observing the land and utilizing how the land can help us while we're still helping the land, and had a lot of it just appealed to me. So we met there. Pierre is a bit older than I am. He's 54, and he had been a landscaper, a landscape designer for many years, for about 14 years before then. And so he was trying to get out of the traditional landscaping, residential and commercial landscaping that people ask for, trying to move towards building ecosystems for people, more long-lasting things, and of course things that provided a bit more food and while still honoring kind of the natural beauty of the plants as well. So we met there, and I feel like we always kind of knew that we were going to start something together. And that was one of the goals of our whole class when we were taking the certificate, was we want to make sure that whatever it is we learn here, that it kind of grows something more in us and it continues like building on itself. So Three Dreams was originally, so there are a few different kind of connotations to the name. So Three Dreams was originally because it was supposed to be me, Pierre, and our other friend Rhett, who we did our permaculture design certificate with. But then Rhett moved away to Quebec City.
I heard that name.
You know Rhett. You played soccer with him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So it was obviously more difficult, him living in Quebec City and all of us running the business together. So me and Pierre continued forward. But Three Dreams also has kind of, it's like the focus of our business in that it's design, educate, and regenerate. So with designing, we're designing systems and installing them for clients or farmers or whoever it might be. Educating is, it's kind of hard. We separate into three things, but they all really like mold into each other, because even when I'm talking with anyone, I feel like I'm trying to like educate about this because I just want other people to know about it. But I guess in a more formal sense, the educational aspect of it is in the form of workshops, classes, things of that nature. So we always try to have that aspect of it to teach people and get the word out. And then with regenerating, we talk about regenerating the soil. So that's really one of the few ways outside of reducing emissions that science has proven that we can fight climate change, human-induced climate change, is by using our soil as a carbon sink. So storing carbon into our soils instead of allowing it to escape into the atmosphere, which a lot of industrial agriculture does, unfortunately. Pretty much all industrial agriculture does.
Well said, well said.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I remember back in the days of Concordia, like the first time I heard the word sustainable was like probably in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And that became like the ultimate hashtag to today's time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important to talk about sustainability, and I think sustainability is kind of the leading towards regeneration, because all regeneration and permaculture is you're thinking beyond sustainability, right?
Yeah.
And sustainability is, you're sustaining your status quo, staying level, right? Whereas regenerating is we want to build systems that not will only maintain that go further than maintaining the status quo, that they'll be able to regenerate themselves while minimizing the human's negative impact on it, or ideally eliminating the negative impact on the environment.
Well said, well said. So I'm hoping for the best for you guys as we approach post-COVID, hopefully soon. Post-COVID should be soon.
Well, some things are starting to open up, so who knows? Soccer's going to come back in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So next, let's take a tour of your compost.
Sure.
So Sebastian, what do you currently have growing in these?
So we have some strawberries over here that are growing. That's these right here. The strawberries are not there, but they're flowering. So very soon we'll see strawberries on there. There are also some other unwanted plants that need to be pulled out. There's a bit of garlic here. These two. This plant is called sorrel. So it's a perennial lettuce. It has a very lemony, zingy type taste. So it's really interesting if you add it in small quantities to salads. It gives a nice taste. Here we have some curly parsley. So we grow some annuals as well, not just perennials. Moving along on the left side, we have some lettuce. So this is what we call volunteer lettuce, because we actually grew it last year, but it reseeded and now it's growing. It grew itself. So we didn't even have to plant it this year. It grew itself. That's the wonder of some plants. Here we have cilantro, which big fan of. We'll be harvesting some of that later today for some salsa probably. We have some more lettuce over here. So those guys in the corner with some kale next to it, and this big plant right here with these huge leaves, that's rhubarb. So as you can see, rhubarb has those kind of reddish green hued stems. You're not supposed to eat the leaves, but if you cut the leaves away from the stems, it's really sweet and sour. So it's good for pies or making drinks or other kind of jams and jellies. That's another thing I want to ramp up the production on is learning how to process all this stuff so you can maximize the harvest.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we just planted some young fruit and nut trees around the property. So this one right here is called a Loma pear. This is a very young tree. It's just establishing itself, but as you can see, it's got some nice leaves coming out here. And we planted this in a guild. So what a guild is, it's kind of like a mini food forest centered around one tree, one main tree, which is usually a fruit or a nut tree. So in this case, it's a pear tree, and we plant things around it that will support it in different ways. So this plant is called comfrey, and it's really good because it can be cut down and provide fertilizer for the plant, for the tree as it decomposes. So as you can see here, I cut down some of the comfrey right there. See how it's just snipped right off? Normally you would want to be very careful with plants,
Yes.
but with this plant, you can just cut it right down and it'll bounce right back in just a few days.
Okay. Awesome.
Here we have lemon balm, which is really good as an insect repellent. Well, for certain insects, for the bad insects, but obviously the pollinators, we want them to be coming in. Also, this can be cooked, used as a tea. I make it as a kind of anti-anxiety, calming tea. It's really delicious, and you really do feel the health benefits of it when you taste it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've had moments where I feel really stressed out, and I'll have a little bit of that tea mixed with some mint, and you instantly start feeling calmer. So it's really cool. Here we have an apple tree. This is a Rouville apple, as you can see, very young as well, but starting to grow. Hoping these guys get established, and in probably 3 to 4 years, the apples will start producing. The pear tree will take a little longer, probably 5 years. And yeah, we can continue alongside over here. So all these guys that you see here, all those kind of sprinkled all over,
Yes.
we want to get those out. I like these plants. They're called Jerusalem artichokes.
Wow.
So it's like a tuber. It grows like a potato in the ground. We don't eat any of the leaves. We only eat what goes in the ground. But the thing is, they grow so fast that they shade out other plants. So I want to move them into a back corner over there because, again, they're super resilient. This is prime real estate for plants that need really good conditions, like these squashes over here. So you have some squashes growing, one right here, one right here, one right over here. Squashes get pretty big, but the Jerusalem artichokes get really tall. So, and squash needs a lot of sun. So if we let these Jerusalem artichokes grow too big, they're going to shade out the squash, and that's not good because Jerusalem artichokes will get pretty much wherever we grow them. The squash we won't if they get shaded.
What we got over here?
Here we have another large. This is a larger guild centered around a plum tree right here. This one is more established than the others as it was planted last year. And here we have a lot of garlic mixed in here with some milkweed. Milkweed is a very good plant for pollinators, monarch butterflies, which I believe are endangered. So it's really good to grow milkweed. Let's see what else we got here. We have kind of wild violets that are growing here. You can see some of the violet flowers here. But you know, I just mowed the lawn earlier, so I mean, I did let it in all of May and the first week or so, or first 6 days of June. Today's the 6th or 7th?
7th.
7th. So the first 6 days of June, I let it all grow for the pollinators, but at a certain point, I just had to cut some back, but it's going to bounce right back. So, and there'll be other things that'll start to bloom soon as well, so that we'll continue to have food for all the pollinators. Speaking of, there's a little wasp right there.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, they're just try not to swat at them and they'll be fine.
Cool.
Let's see. We got some other cool ones here. This is a high bush cranberry. So again, these is one of the ones that was planted this summer, or this spring rather. So it's still pretty young, but it's growing. It's doing pretty well. We haven't planted much around it yet, other than the wild stuff that just comes in. So we have some dandelion that's here, some garlic mustard that just grows wild. So the garlic mustard, it's edible. But I don't like to allow it to grow too much because it can choke out other plants. It can kill native plants as well. So either let it grow in certain areas because it's super resilient, but don't want to let it spread too much around the garden.
Okay.
This is the tree that we planted this year that is probably doing the best of all the others. It's called, in Latin, it's an Amorpha fruticosa, or a false indigo, and it's native, so we love that about it. It's a nitrogen fixer, which means that it puts nitrogen into the soil, produces these cool flowers here. So really interesting. And so it's a very hardy plant, so I could probably prune some of this back. Actually, this dead growth right here, I'm not gonna do it with my hands because it's kind of, I mean, it would be fine, but you know, you don't want to hurt trees if you don't have to. I'll come back here with scissors and do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this tree is really good because if you plant it around other trees, same concept as comfrey, as you chop it down and you just recycle it back into the soil, it's going to feed the soil, feed nutrients to the plants around it, and it can withstand being cut down. So it's really beneficial in that way.
Excellent.
Here we have the soil generation compost zone. So as you can see, it's a lot of leaves, branches, horse manure, kitchen scraps that we mix in, anything that I get from clients in terms of kind of yard waste, as people would call it, or dead leaves, things like that. We can just compost it, and slowly that's going to build soil that I'll either use on this property or use for clients' projects. Mainly for this property, because it's not like the most scientific way that we're doing it here. It's not very extremely precise. I don't want to sell it as something that's like really sterile when I know that other places have a much more proper operation. So this would most likely, it's just going to be used on this property because the quality is good, but you have to reach a certain level in order to sell it, right?
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to soil, you only really want to reach a certain scale if you're going to start selling it. And this is very small scale. This is Coco, head of security. She's making sure the groundhog stays away. Because there's a groundhog that comes in here. He likes to go underneath, and if he gets close to all this stuff back here, he'll just decimate it. So having her, an animal that is bred to chase after groundhogs and other small rodents, is really awesome.
Well, what type of dog is it?
She's a miniature dachshund.
Miniature dog.
She's awesome. 12 years old, but she's still as spry as a puppy.
Cute.
Yeah. Let's see, we can go to this spot over here. Got some other cool things to show you. So this is the mother raspberry bush. Bought this raspberry plant probably, I think it was my first year here, so this must have been 6 years ago.
Okay.
And it just propagates itself. I put some over there, put some over there. So this is, as you can see, it's flowering now. So within 3 weeks to a month, we'll start getting some raspberries. And once the raspberries start producing, if you don't come out here every single day and harvest everything, you're just gonna lose it. So it's kind of exciting, but it's also stressful sometimes because you don't want to maximize the harvest, right?
Nothing comes easy.
No, exactly. We got some other things here, more comfrey because we put it everywhere. These are called honeyberries or haskaps. So there's some growing under here. If you get nice and close, you can see right here, there are a few little ones growing. Can you see that?
Yeah, I zoomed in.
Yeah? Cool. Yeah. So we have, I believe this is the female, and that's the male over there. Certain plants need a male and female in order to produce fruit. Others, they can self-pollinate. Here we have some garlic chives that are starting to flower. Well, actually, I think it's chives and garlic chives. They're both mixed in here. So the chives are the rounder leaves here, these like shoots, and then the garlic chives have the flatter ones. This is peppermint. If you run your fingers through it, it smells very minty. This is called bee balm or monarda. It's in the mint family as well. It's very, it's also an indigenous plant, so we love it. It gives a great spiky red flower that pollinators love, so always love giving food to the pollinators. This one is called gooseberry. Let's find you some gooseberries. Where are they? Here, we got some growing right here. It's a nice big one. This is the first year. This is just a type of berry. This one's also indigenous. It's actually, I'm named after it. Although it's the variety is Sebastian. So it's it's a Quebecer through and through. Here, these white flowers are coming from the horseradish plant.
Yes.
So this is horseradish, which like the Jerusalem artichoke is a tuber. So you harvest the root is what you eat. Well, it's not a tuber, but the root is very chunky, so that's what you harvest. You don't really eat the leaves. I mean, you could eat the young leaves, but the older leaves get a bit tougher, so they're not as good. Yeah, we can make our way over here.
Perfect.
I think that was Dom that was calling. Oh, that was Jerry. Oh, actually, we'll have some other stuff to show you here. So this is like these are all sunflowers and other wildflowers. The sunflowers, you can tell they're pretty distinct. So they're growing all here. So eventually this is going to be like a wall of sunflowers and other wildflowers underneath. And this all surrounded a masquinonge cherry tree. That's what that little one is. And then this one here is the pawpaw tree. Although it's not doing super well right now. I probably need to give it some more shade because it is a shade-loving plant. But yeah, the pawpaw is an interesting one because it's kind of like a tropical fruit, but it grows in the Northeast. So it's like one of the few plants. It's not commercialized because it doesn't keep very well in large quantities. So you got to eat it really quickly. Here we have the other pear, the other Loma pear. And then here we have some nut trees. These are called hazelberts. So it's a mix between a hazelnut and a filbert. I'm not sure if you know what a filbert is. I didn't.
What's a filbert?
It's a type of nut.
Okay.
That's really all I can tell you.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a cross between a hazelnut and a hazelbert. And a filbert, rather.
Okay.
And this is the other pawpaw tree. So this is what that other pawpaw tree should look like. It's got really big leaves. This one's doing pretty well, but you know, just like humans, everyone grows at a different pace. You know, plants are no different. Yeah.
It's a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, well, some of these don't require too much work, like the trees and the bushes. And that's the idea with perennial systems, is that you don't need to do the most work you're going to have to do is harvesting.
Yeah.
And that's really ideal. This area is more of like the classical annual vegetable garden. We have tomatoes, potatoes, squash, beans, some celery. This was always kind of the main area. This was the only area here that was defined when I moved here. When I moved here 6 years ago.
Okay.
Everything else we've built. So the bed over there that we started with, all of these, basically everything past this little square area was done in the past 6 years, 7 years. Oh, I think that's done.
So Sebastian, what is the goal of Three Dreams, 12
The goal of Three Dreams, well, continue building our business, but really what we want to do is create regenerative systems for clients. So whether that's a forest ecosystem, a food forest, a small scale pollinator garden, whether it's a vegetable garden, that's really what we want to do. So yeah, there are a lot of different ways that we go about that, but ultimately we want all of our systems to have those characteristics.
Awesome, awesome. Where do you see you guys in 5 years?
Well, hopefully in less than 5 years, we're going to buy a piece of property outside of Montreal where we can start building our nursery. Because what you see around here is essentially what our nursery / my home personal vegetable garden is. Well, mine and Ariel's. But ultimately, I'm a renter on this land, so I don't have so much control over what I can do. So my partner Pierre and my other partner Pierre and I are we're looking to buy a piece of land so that we can have a greenhouse there and really start to increase our production. Because ideally, all of the plants that we're using in all of our designs will be coming from ourselves instead of from other greenhouses that sell them. So that's a long-term what we're looking to do. Hopefully by next year we have the piece of land, and in 5 years where we've got a big greenhouse and pumping out lots of plants for people and trees as well. I mean, in that land we'd have our own nursery, so the greenhouse, but also we'd be building larger scale food forests. So I mean, in 5 years, if I were to have the piece of land by next year, probably some of those trees are going to be producing fruits, nuts, berries. And then by that point, we'll need to find a place to sell it, because we'll have more than we know what to do with. So that's kind of a longer term goal of Three Dreams as well. Not necessarily becoming a farm, but potentially supporting the creation of another business that is more food transformation related. Yeah, because we're more in the creation of the plants that will create the food. But
So,
gotta process
as
our
a
own
fellow
food itself.
entrepreneur, looking
Yeah.
at those who want to start a similar type of business or any form of